Hi, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the Senator for Gaithersburg in Maryland. Welcome to this week's edition of Kibbitzing with Kagan, brief conversations with people I find fascinating. My very special guest today is the founding executive director of Emerge Maryland, Diane Fink. Diane, thank you so much for all you do and for joining me today.
Well, thank you for asking me to be on your show. This is great.
Absolutely. We have a lot to cover, and I'd like to start with your childhood. You grew up in East LA in a poor and dangerous neighborhood, and after you graduated from high school, you had to work 3 jobs. Talk a little bit about that and how that has informed your career.
You did some homework.
Of course.
Wow, yeah, it really has. It set me on a track to understanding more about how people can fall through the cracks and how people who have great intelligence are often overlooked because they come from lesser means and a background that may not have been privileged as others. So it has really been a driving force in my life.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Thank you for sharing that. You came east, you met your husband and started a family, and you ran for office yourself and were elected to the Frederick Democratic Central Committee. What was that like, serving with the party and running for office?
It was exciting for me. I mean, the Central Committee was the perfect level for me to start because I was a little bit shy about it. No, in no way was I considered myself a public speaker, so I'm glad I didn't have to do any of that for that particular office. I had hoped to run for higher office, but then there was a redistricting, and I got cut out of a district that I could win in into one that was no possible chance for me to win. But I did enjoy serving on the Central Committee. It was a good experience to learn about the ins and outs of local politics. I got to know people from all across the state. I made a lot of good connections. I learned a lot. And little did I know that it was going to set me on the path to where I am now.
All right. So the path. Traditionally, old white guys were who made our laws, who passed the legislation, who debated, and the rest of us were affected. And a lot of us have thought for many, many decades that we needed more women in office. So talk about the founding of Emerge Maryland.
Yes, so we were at, I think, 16th or 17th in the nation back when the first committee came together to bring Emerge to Maryland for the number of women elected to public office. That benchmark is set by an organization called the Center for American Women in Politics.
Part of the Kibbitzing Institute at Rutgers University in New Jersey.
Exactly. And we had been at number 1 and number 2. We had bounced between 1 and 2 back just before I ran for Central Committee. I had run into and met my first mentor, Delegate Sue Hecht.
Nice. I love Sue. Sue and I were elected to the House together the same year, 1994.
Fabulous. And she's wonderful. She's still in my life, and I just adore her.
Yes.
She told me at the door, first time I ever met a politician at the door, that Maryland was a great place for a woman to be in politics because of that stature that we had.
Yes.
However, over the years, and it didn't take long, we fell quite, abruptly. So it was clear that something needed to be done because there was nobody really making the effort to help women and to see to it that we held that position. So Emerge Maryland looked like the right sort of vehicle for that. And indeed, I think it is.
So Emerge America is the national umbrella. And there are, I think, 27 other states, I think, that have Emerge in their states. I remember being in a meeting with Susie Turnbull and Sima Ozdeby and a couple of us starting the earliest conversations about Emerge Maryland. So what was important about launching it? You flew to California and you had early conversations about what was being done in Maryland, which I think is fantastic. What did you learn, and what were the places you started?
Yeah, so I did fly to California, and it was in parallel to Susie and Senator at the time, Senator Mikulski, Martha McKenna. These women had already begun the ball rolling, and by the time I got to California, I learned that this was happening and was asked if I wanted to join this committee, and I said, "Of course I do."
Yes.
So I think, great minds, right? I mean, I'm not so sure I'm great, but I was thinking along the same lines, and we all converged and we brought this into fruition. Once they had the money raised to launch the program, I was hired as the interim executive director, and it was challenging in the beginning, but it's been so well worth it.
That's so great. So I was going to wear a t-shirt, but I thought it would be too casual and too disrespectful. But this, women are watching, and then the back is the killer, and we vote. So talk about why women traditionally haven't wanted to be the candidates themselves. They've preferred to be in the background and support other male candidates.
Yeah, and I still find sometimes that's the case. So one of my favorite people to read her reports is Jennifer Lawless. Jennifer Lawless is a professor out of American University, and she does a lot of studies on women in politics. And she wrote this paper about the lack of ambition for women, and it starts in the 3rd grade, which just is heartbreaking. That's when girls start to notice, that boys are more aggressive and girls, are told to keep quiet, and all of these patriarchal things begin to gel for them. And it becomes, unfortunately, a lifelong problem.
So many, many years ago, there was a reporter who was doing a piece and was referencing me in it. I was in the House of Delegates, and one of the adjectives he used to describe me was ambitious. And I said, "Oh, dear God, next time call me a mass murderer." Like, ambitious, a woman being ambitious is 100% of the time an insult. And it's something that he had never even considered.
Yeah, I mean, language matters. And I think language it can change. The meaning can change as we get into different eras.
Yes.
Ambition is not a bad thing in women now.
Yes.
But I understand where you're coming from, because I am not a spring chicken anymore.
Right, right.
Live through these eras of change, and how language can shape and reflect societal beliefs and mores.
Yes. Well, I'll do one more language thing before we go deeper into Emerge. You referenced Sue Hecht as a politician, and I have a one-woman crusade against the P word, because it is impossible. You've never heard a compliment used with the P word. She's such a smart and hardworking politician is a sentence that has never been uttered. It's always negative. So I was like, I'm a senator, a legislator, an elected official, a public servant. There are a million things you can call me, but don't call me a politician. That's one of my things.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So let's go back to Emerge. So for those who are unfamiliar with Emerge Maryland or Emerge America, what is your mission, and how is it that you have been so effective at helping to engage more women in running for office and being elected?
Oh, wow, great question. So our mission, of course, is to recruit, empower, and encourage and train women to run for public office. And I think we've been successful. I believe we have been successful because from day one, we've made it clear that our doors are open to every woman who has this desire. It's been an unfortunate situation where white privilege has been in the forefront for so long. And our vision from the start was women of color have a lot more ground to make up than white women do. And so targeting the recruiting for the classes was paramount in making sure that we had diverse classes, these diverse cohorts, and that the opportunity was not cut because, or it wasn't more difficult for women of color to get into the class. In other words,
Right.
we kept our tuition low. We've made sure that there's the ability to be mentored. If, for example, they are falling short of the requirements for the class, then we spend time with them and help them to achieve the goals that need to be achieved in order to get into the class. And then while they're in the class and even afterwards, there's, we're available, me and the board, the staff and the board are available to mentor and to help them along.
And for a woman to apply to Emerge Maryland, she doesn't have to already have decided to run for any particular office in any particular year, right? She can just be interested in running or even being appointed to a board or commission.
So generally, yes. The year before our big election years, which are the midterms in Maryland, because we turn over most of the state's seats then, we do make it a requirement that you know what you're running for, because there's so many women who are getting ready to throw their hat in the ring, and we want to make sure those seats are taken up by women who absolutely know that they're going to be going for. The good example is our class of 2017. We had 23 women in that class. 19 of them ran for, 20 of them ran for office and 19 won. So, I mean, we had a huge win rate. It was unbelievable, Cheryl. And it was so exciting because it proved that not only all these years it has, but that year really proved that what we were doing was working, and women recognized the fact that it was a valuable skill, valuable skills that were being taught in our classes that they could use.
So for 2 or 3 years of each 4-year cycle, women can be a little more flex, a little more undecided.
Yes. And we help them figure out how to figure out where the opportunities are for them.
Yes. Good.
But we don't tell them what to run for. If they change their mind, that's up to them. I mean, what they run for is completely up to them in the long run.
Right. You talked about the skills, Diane. Why don't you talk about some of the skills that a participant will gain over the course of the period of their learning?
I'll start with the two that I hear that women say they need the most. And number one is fundraising.
That's the obvious one, yes.
Right. So, I could never do this. I don't have any money. I don't know how to fundraise. The second one is public speaking.
Yep, I knew.
We do we do 2 full classes on public speaking, but they get an opportunity throughout the entire course to get up and practice their public speaking. So there's ample opportunity for them to hone their skills. All of their field operations, which would include knocking on doors, getting their message out, finding their voters, all of that we do. We have an entire day on diversity and inclusion.
So that's a broad range of skills. So fundraising, public speaking, field organizing, door knocking.
Messaging in media, campaign strategy, it goes on, and it's to deep dive into each subject. So we don't leave any stone unturned for them.
That's great. A lot of women that I've mentored over the years have same thing, sort of expressed their concern about fundraising. And I think the hurdle that a lot of us have to go get over is it's not for me. It's not give me money. It's, do you care about good government? Do you care about the issues that I'm running on? Do you care about thoughtful and effective public service? That's what you get if you support my campaign. But it is a hard, sort of switch that has to be flipped.
Exactly. Yes, they get it in the end.
Yeah. So what makes a good candidate in your opinion?
One who gets exactly what you just said. I mean, it's never about the candidate. It's always about the voters. No matter what they're talking about, no matter what their personal beliefs might be, or their ideas of what the issues that need to be addressed, it's what do the voters want? What are the voters asking you to do? You're there to represent the voters. And a good candidate understands that. And she does not put her ego forward. Instead, she puts the people first.
It's great. So how do you find those women? Because these young women or middle-aged, older women come from all nooks and crannies of the state and with all different backgrounds. How do you start to identify women you'd like to recruit to be a part of Emerge?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun because, I have to be creative each year. I started out in the very first class. I just called all those connections I made when I was in the Central Committee.
Love it.
And I reintroduced myself and I said, here's what we're doing now. The enthusiasm was overwhelming. Men and women all across the state were very excited about it. And then I really felt the pressure. I'm like, wow, they really expect something to happen here. So I better make this happen. And I've never forgotten that.
This is a random question. So Emerge elects Democratic women. Is there a similar program for Republican women that is at all similar?
None that I've ever heard of. I do get some Republican women who contact me asking me that question, which is really interesting. And I said, you should start something. I mean, if it's not out there, then spearhead that.
Totally. So when I was before I was ever a candidate, I ran a 3-level consulting program. It was ready, get set, and go. And it was getting women ready to run for office. And it was great. It made me think about the women that are in an Emerge class come with all different backgrounds and all different levels of skills. How do you sort of make the curriculum applicable to everyone?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because it was something that we had to figure out from day one. And basically we never assume that somebody knows something.
Yes.
So, we start off with the very basics. And if it's a refresher for those who already know it, then that's fine. And we actually, what the best parts of the way the classes are run, because it's a cohort, they know each other, they bond over the time they're together, they have their own input. I learn a lot from the women in the class, and they have a lot to offer to the other women in the class. So the exchange within the class is also very valuable.
Oh, they treat themselves, they say they're sisters, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah, 100%. I love it.
I have to ask you, since you've seen these programs and learned these tips so many times, have you given thought to running again yourself?
I still live in that same district.
We have to quit the district. We have our first female comptroller in Brooke Learman, an alum of Emerge, Maryland. We have a woman lieutenant governor again, Aruna Miller. We had Kathleen Kennedy Townsend back in the 90s. What sort of role modeling and example does that set for prospective or current Emerge members?
Oh, I think it's huge. Aruna was on our board. I'm not sure if you were aware of that, but it really is huge. I think even more than women who are inspired by these women really understand. After Brooke was elected, I got phone calls from
Comptroller Learman.
Comptroller, sorry.
Yes.
Comptroller Learman was elected. I was getting phone calls from women asking me, how could they run for comptroller? Because nobody's ever applied to run for that office before. So they realized, oh, here's another seat to run for. So I thought that was really interesting. She really has inspired a lot.
And for the record, she's killing it. She's doing such a great job as our comptroller. And I'm biased. I've known her since she was like 10 or 11 years old. So she's amazing. And we only had one woman run for office as on the Democratic side. So hopefully we'll have more down the road.
Sorry, dark here.
Okay. What have you experienced as the biggest barrier to women running and for them, therefore, being interested in applying to participate in Emerge Maryland?
The biggest barrier, I think, is fear and lack of self-confidence. I think that is, and that's where I come in, where I travel the state with, doing recruitment events. I have this Taste of Emerge class that I have developed over the years that gives the women skills that they can use to begin understanding their local politics, figuring out where they might fit into the picture, and helping them to develop that confidence and their political voice, if you will. That class, I've had over 800 women go through that class in the years since we started it. And there's some of the other states have adopted it as well. They've been using it for years as well. So it's a really good tool for them to learn how to sort of build out their network, find their political voice, and figure out, how do I decide which office is the good fit for me to run for? How do I look for these opportunities and decide, where to go? I don't know about you, but I'm going to lose my power.
Uh-oh. Well, let's see how long we go here.
Getting really bad here.
So age of women running for the first time. It used to be that women wouldn't run until they were in their 50s or 60s, after they had family, the kids had grown up, and then they decided they had the time. Women are running younger and younger as a career. Why don't you speak to that?
Yes, I love it. These last couple of generations, the millennials and since then, they are emboldened and they're picking up the mantle, I think, where Cheryl, our generation, sort of, left off on, the wave of, what do you call it, feminist movement that we had. Sarah, oh my goodness. I'm getting
Senator Elfreth?
Senator Elfreth is the youngest woman ever elected to the Senate. And I think she helped inspire a lot of young women as well.
She's terrific.
She's great. And, I've been training for Jamie Raskin's Democracy Summer for the last 7 years. And some of those young women have, from high school and college, have been in touch with me, and some have gone through the program. I had one who was my intern from the time she was a sophomore in high school, and now she's graduated college and she's gone off to do all kinds of wonderful things. So, I think it's fantastic. But I also want to say, I really appreciate the women of a certain age that have a few gray hairs who are still willing to step up, because they have a lot to give as well.
100%. And I was elected in my early 30s. So just, was in for a while, got out for a while, was out for 12 years and then came back. But so a few more questions here, and let's keep going and ignore the storm. So let's go. Why is it important to elect women? How are women office holders different from men?
When I was first asked that question 11 years ago, when we started, it wasn't theoretical, but a little bit. I mean, I didn't have a lot to go on. It was, the issues that women care about have been put on the back burner by the men. Things like education and childcare and healthcare, especially women's healthcare, and all of these things that, we put into this bucket of women's issues, right? Which is a little insulting now at this point, but
I'm going to say women's issues, but they are people's issues. But yes,
right, exactly. So what I've been seeing and what I've been observing, since we have 19 women from our program in the General Assembly, I see that they bring a level of confidence where they're able to bring disparate groups together. They bring consensus. They tend to draft more bills and more substantive bills, I should say. And the issues that they're bringing to the forefront, I'm watching the men now copy the women, and I'm watching their behavior and their language, because I'm one of those geeks who watches the General Assembly 90-day session every day.
Yes.
And I'm seeing the men kind of mimic the women's behavior in a way and use the language that they're using. And I just think this is the way it should be, because for a while, I think, maybe a little bit of time in our generation where women thought we had to behave like men in order to get along in this world, right? Yeah. So this pendulum is swung.
Yes. So the most sort of traditional women's issue is abortion rights, reproductive choice. The Dobbs decision by the Supreme Court was just devastating. Did
Yes.
that provoke an uptick in applications or in women reaching out to apply to run for office and to be trained by Emerge Maryland?
You would have thought that would have happened.
Yeah.
It did happen.
Okay.
And I think that speaks to the strength of our General Assembly and the women in our General Assembly who made sure that we are safe here in Maryland. And so for the local level, it wasn't as big an issue as it is at the federal level, right? Because locally in Maryland, we're protected. So it didn't happen that way. I was a little surprised as well, to be honest with you, but then I realized why.
I just want to share the statistics because I do have them here. The Senate, the Maryland State Senate is 34% women, and the House is 43% women, coming up on half, with a woman speaker, the first African-American speaker of the House in Maryland, and that ranks us 9th in the United States. So we have certainly improved a lot. Couple more questions and then we'll start to wrap up. What advice would you give to a woman who's thinking about running?
Oh, do it. Absolutely. Yeah. No hesitation. Make sure that make sure that your friends and family are on board with you. Make sure that you go in with a sturdy and strong and well thought out plan, and get trained by Emerge Maryland, because we'll steer you right.
Love it. What does the future of Emerge Maryland look like? What sort of goals do you have? Something you're working on now? Anything different?
Well, we are not at 52% yet, so we do have that goal.
Which is the percentage of our population.
That's exactly right.
Not just a random number. That's the number.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yes, 52%.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, our goal hasn't changed. I think one of the things that makes us so strong and so successful is that we're not looking for new mission. We have our laser focus on what we want to get done.
Good. So we have to talk about Barbie, the movie. I assume that you have seen it by now.
No, I haven't. I'm going with my sister, and she's waiting for me to come to Florida to see it with her.
Oh, you can't wait. You got to see it with her the second time. Okay, well, then I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you about it. But I loved it, and it's great. All right. So Fast Five. Diane Fink, the executive director of Emerge Maryland. 5 quick questions, 5 quick answers. First, if you could travel anywhere in the world and time and money and COVID and everything were no option, where would you like to go?
I have my sights on Japan right now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Other than Barbie, what's your favorite feminist movie?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. Oh gosh, there's so many. I love movies with strong female figures, so I can't pick a favorite. I'm sorry. There's too many.
Okay.
There's a lot of good movies out there with strong female figures.
Okay. Question 3. What is a hobby that you'd like to improve, get better at?
Well, I crochet, so I would like to be much better at that.
Okay. What do you crochet? The clothes or knickknacks or?
Oh, blankets. Right now I'm doing a wall hanging. So trying to get more artsy with it.
Love it. That's great. Question number 4. What's your favorite dessert?
Oh, chocolate. Anything chocolate.
Anything chocolate. All right. And question number 5, Diane Fink, the founding executive director of Emerge Maryland. What is your hidden secret superpower? This is a question I ask every guest. What is a skill or talent you have, something you're really good at that most folks can't do?
I have really strong instincts.
For what?
Well, for people, for what to do next. I have good political instincts, I believe. I've been told. I think I have strong intuition. If I don't think about it too hard, that's when I come up with the best ideas and the best way to handle something. But I think some of it comes from what you mentioned in the beginning. I was told I have street smarts, having to live by my wits. So you tend to develop this other sense that tells you what's the best way to go to be successful.
That's fantastic. I love it. Well, it's perfect for your job. Diane Fink, thank you for all you've done to help elect women, talented Democratic women to the General Assembly and other offices. And thank you for taking time to chat today. We'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.